Hey everybody, Vincent here. Before we get into the podcast, just a quick programming note for everybody listening at home. Just so everyone knows, Billy was not able to record the video today like we originally had planned, so unfortunately the video we reference of installing Linux on his machine in the episode has not been recorded yet, and there is no idea of exactly when it will be. We know it will be at least a few weeks, though, because we're off next week for Christmas, so our sincerest apologies for that, but hope you enjoy the episode anyways. Thanks for listening to Open Source Tonight. This is Open Source Tonight for December the 18th, 2019. I'm your host, Vincent Mackert in studio, and this week I'm glad to say we got Billy back in the studio.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Thanks so much, Billy, for not dying. That's always nice. Makes the second time.
You gotta blame the weather, man.
Makes the second time I've made a reference to dying in the beginning of an episode. Is this the Deaf Podcast now?
Probably.
It almost makes more sense to call it the Deaf Podcast.
Yeah.
Not the Deaf like you can. Anyway, let's just get into the news. Folks, this is the weekly show where we talk about the latest in open source news, open source hardware, sometimes maybe. And don't forget this week, we've got a very special episode. The best thing in the world probably to ever happen on this show again is going to happen this week. Every show from this point on will be compared to today's episode. Billy has agreed to let me install Linux Mint on his machine. Tune into the YouTube channel after the fact to see the video version of the program.
Let's hope it works.
It won't. Anyway, let's do this. So, Billy, first of all, this show is actually not going to talk about the news this week. I'm such a good producer, I didn't tell you. Let me tell you what it is about. This week, it's going to be all about the history of open source for the year 2019.
So we're just doing a big coverage of it, aren't we?
Basically, we're just going to talk about some open source things that happened this year that was like huge, and then that's it.
Wouldn't that still technically be called news?
It's still news, but it's old news, not new news.
Okay.
It's not new news, it's old news.
Okay, so it's old news, but not new news.
Yeah, that's a tongue twister right there. So, folks, first of all, I just wanted to bring up a few things here. We're not even going to do this off notes. I'm just going to do this off my head. Billy, feel free to jump in. First, let's talk about Red Hat being bought by IBM. I don't know why I want to do that voice today. But IBM, this year, their deal to buy Red Hat completed. So, folks, congratulations. Red Hat's now owned by IBM. I really got to stop doing that. That's getting annoying.
Let's clap for them. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It's a good thing. IBM likes Linux. Anyway, so IBM, they've said they like Linux enough to buy it. So, buy a specific distro named Red Hat and the whole company. So, very, very glad for the Red Hat people. I think that the Red Hat engineers are very talented, and I'm glad that they've got a good parent company that's supporting them. And I think that was just some really good news this year. I mean, there's really not much to say about it, in my opinion. It's great. Woohoo. So,
yeah, let's just clap for everybody.
Anyway, but that's that news. Billy, any comment?
I think it sounds nice.
That's nice. That's nice that it sounds. Anyway,
nice. Nice.
Yeah, we're editing that out.
I'm just kidding.
Anyway. So up next in the news for this year. See, I'm already forgetting how to do this. So up next, we're going to talk about Canonical. Yeah, we're going to talk about Canonical. Some of you love them and some of you hate them. And I love them. So, like them. Partially like them. Have an opinion. Anyway, and so Canonical, look, their snaps thing, I have mixed opinions about, as everyone knows, but I do like some things they do. But technically, Canonical didn't do this. It was just their OS that was... I should really tease this better, shouldn't I? Yeah. Canonical's OS, Ubuntu, you can now buy on brand spanking new Dells. I mean, you could already do that, but now they've announced even more new Dells. So I think it's the XPS 13's new model or what? It's some XPS model. Anyways, it's one of their developer machines. You can get Linux on it now.
That's cool.
And as I said in my radio show, not a sponsor, I would really like to see, or my radio segment, I'd really like to see a Dell that actually wants to install Linux on, or give at least the option of installing Linux on their lower end machines. Because right now, if I recall correctly, you can only get it on like the developer machines and the workstations and stuff for business, which, I mean, to be fair, those machines, in my opinion, are the really only good machines that anybody makes. I'm sorry, but the consumer machines, they're a consumer because they cut all the good parts out. That's a little secret for you if you didn't know. Just get you a cheap used workstation on eBay. Trust me, it's way better than getting a new machine if you ain't got that much money to spend. Anyway, I know because that's what I do on a lot of my machines. But anyway, here's the thing, folks. I'd like to see that. What about you, Billy? Do you think the Dell needs to embrace the Linux thing a little bit?
Sure.
I mean,
they need to have like something like they need to update their the way they are.
I mean, look,
to
be fair to Dell, they do offer Linux on, like I said, some of their machines, but I'd like to see them offer it across the board. But
yeah,
you know,
they need to catch up with the times.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe they'll do it someday, but who knows? So I guess there's not much to say about that, which is great because this week's topic is going to be really long. But let's see what else here. What open source news you want to talk about this year? We could talk about the Linux kernel turning 27 years old.
There you go.
So yeah, folks. Another thing I talked about in my radio segment. Again, not a sponsor, but if it was a sponsor, you'd go listen to it, right? Anyway, but no, seriously. Here's the thing about it. Linux is 27 years old. That's old. Can you imagine that? That's 27. I'm 23. Billy's, I think,
20. I'm 23.
I thought you were 24. Okay.
I turn 24 next month.
Okay. Well, the point is, it's older than both of us. Not ages combined, but separately. And so think about that. That's old. This Linux is out of college now. Linux is like ready to enter the real world. I mean, it is entering
yeah.
The analogy, I don't know where I was going with that.
The analogy is it's a college graduate.
Yeah.
Getting on in life.
Yeah, exactly. It's about to go out into the real world.
Get a job.
Get a mortgage.
Work at some type of office for very odd hours.
And be complaining about it all the time to his family or her family. We don't really know what the gender of the Linux kernel is. Maybe
their
it's
family.
Yeah. Maybe they're non-binary. Who knows?
There you go.
Yeah. But anyway, whatever the Linux kernel is, I like it. So happy birthday to the Linux kernel. I know it's not now, but, it's really great. Linus, 27 long years ago, got on that mailing list that I forget the name of and open sourced the very first version of Linux. Makes me want to cry a little bit. It's the best thing ever, pretty much. Yeah, Linux it's great.
Salute to you.
Yes, wonderful Linux, ladies and gentlemen. Linux is one of the most wonderful things on the planet Earth, in my opinion. I mean, there's other good things too, like chair. Anyway,
let's just continue.
This is the Ramble Show. I think we're going to call it Vincent Rambles and some other stuff. That's
Vincent the Rambling Man.
Vincent the Rambling Man. Anyway, sounds like a country song.
Rambling Man is a country song.
Oh, well, sorry, Rambling Man artist. Didn't know. Anyway, but Linux, we've had a great year. Have we made it to the year of the Linux desktop? I wish, but unfortunately, Windows still is the bulk of the OS share. But don't worry, we're about to install Linux on Billy's machine. That's going to cut that percentage down just a tiny little bit more. Slowly but surely, that number will keep going down, and hopefully one of these days, before I die of old age or whatever kills me, it will be all right.
It'll be the AI that someone created on Linux.
Yeah, be the AI that takes over the world with the robot control and all that. Yeah, no, but serious, and of course it'll be running Linux, but
it'd be HAL 3000 all over again,
I suppose. But no, in all seriousness, Linux, I think we've made a lot of strides this year. For one thing, the Olive open source video editor, I'm pretty sure that came out this year. Think about this, folks. We have a video editor that's, well, how do I put this gently? Not crap, that's open source on Linux. Sure, we've had Lightworks and DaVinci Resolve, but now we finally have an open source editor that's not Kdenlive, that's somewhat decent for video production. And even Kdenlive, I'm sorry, but it has its issues. I'm just putting that out there. But Olive's actually not that bad, because now with Olive, you actually have an editor that you can actually edit video in a somewhat reasonable way, and it isn't continuously dropping frames and being a pain and being buggy and crashing. And remember, it's an alpha. So if it's going to be pretty decent in alpha, I can only wait till we get to stable release. I mean, it's just going to be awesome. I've been editing my videos in Olive for months now, and I can say that it's not perfect, but compared to Kdenlive, it's definitely amazing. And again, I'm not trying to bash Kdenlive. It's not bad software. I edited my videos on it for a long time. Even some of the videos this year came out was actually partially edited or completely edited in Kdenlive. It's not bad software. It's just, it has its issues like anything. But I think that at this point, Olive is more polished than Kden. However, the newest Kdenlive, I will grant you, is definitely better than the older version. I haven't used it much, though, so I'll admit that most of my experiences with the older release. So who knows, maybe the new release is a lot better. One thing I heard that was a lot better about it is the accelerated video playback, so which is great. So hopefully you won't have those drop frames anymore. It's one of the big things that pushed me away from it. I mean, can you imagine trying to edit some video where that every time you tried to add an effect or something, you'd have to watch 5 or 6 seconds of the video stutter like crazy before you could actually see what was going on?
Not really sure.
Well,
as I said, I'm the noob to this.
Trust me. Unfortunately, that's the thing you used to have to deal with in Kdenlive a lot. And Linux video editing, a lot of editors was like that. DaVinci Resolve and Lightworks didn't do things like that. And Olive is pretty good about not doing that. It's still not perfect. It still drops frames occasionally and stuff, but it's like a million times better in that aspect, at least compared to the old version of Kdenlive. So I think this year we've made strides in making Linux better for video professionals. It's definitely great that we're going in the right direction there, I think. Among other things, Blender alone helps us a lot. Being able to do 3D on Linux is not exactly a new thing. I mean, you've got a lot of 3D software on Linux. Companies like Pixar and DreamWorks do animation on Linux all the time professionally. So,
and their animations look great.
Exactly. And they do it on Linux. So, we're going to get there, people. Linux is going to, I think, at some point be the powerhouse for video production. I mean, for one thing, Windows, as it keeps becoming less and less tested by Microsoft and more unstable. And while Linux is becoming better and better and more stable as every day goes by, and more video production software is on Linux, and the software that's there keeps getting more and more stable and more reliable with more features, I think it's only a matter of time until that the Microsoft dynasty, if you will, and the Apple dynasty when it comes to media production slowly becomes a footnote into history, right?
It'll slowly die down.
Yeah, slowly those numbers will go down. I mean, we're going to have to see, but I do think that at a certain point, Linux is going to take home the champion for video production. And one of the reasons I think that is, hear me out, and this is kind of like a little impromptu essay here, but I think one of the main reasons that's going to happen is, from what I can tell, most professional videos, they want a machine that works, they want something that's stable, and they want something that's upgradable as can be. And while a Windows machine is upgradable, the word stable definitely doesn't no longer apply. So, Apple, some of their machines are upgradable, but they're really expensive. Now, that being said, the studios can afford it, so that's really not the end of the world for them.
Yeah.
But what I'm hoping to see is that we see a gradual shift towards Linux, because you can get a very powerful Linux machine for a reasonable price point and be able to render video on it in very high quality, and we're getting more and more capabilities when it comes to video on Linux as every passing day. One thing I definitely would like to see next year for Linux is to have something like OBS Studio, but a little bit more polished. Again, OBS Studio, I use it all the time. It's not bad, but I think that for a professional person trying to switch live video, it's quite close to being where it needs to be, but we need a few little features to be tacked on there to get it to where I think it needs to be for everybody. Like myself, yeah. I really want to be able to do what's called DSKs, downstream keyers in it. Basically, you have like a master channel, if you will, or channels of content you can overlay over the final output of OBS or the whatever switcher it is, right? And that's actually what the public gets to see. That's what the recording is. That's what the live broadcast is, whatever. I want that because, like, for example, if you're like trying to put a logo on every single shot, right now in OBS, you either have to put it in every single shot, either like individually with different image copies, or you have to do like a global scene and then put that global scene in every single one of them at a time. And I mean, yeah, they work, and I'll grant you it gives you control, but it's annoying, and it's duplicating effort that I feel like is not necessary. I mean, in a normal commercial switcher, you would just be able to use a DSK, a downstream keyer, to just overlay that image using that one image input on all the sources, and you can fade it up and down, you can transition it, so I would like to see that be something OBS would be able to do in the future. Another thing I think that would be really cool is for OBS to be able to output a virtual webcam output. A lot of software switchers can do that, and that's something that would be really great to be able to do. Like, for example, for me, I want to be able to do video shows where the guest can see the switcher output in real time. To do that, I need a virtual output that can be fed into Skype or Discord or whatever particular situation or system we're using to get, that audio and video content back and forth, right? So there is ways to do it now. I mean, like, for example, if you're on Windows, you can use the what's it called? It's one of the Newtek's NDI plugins that can take an NDI source over the network, which is basically just a real-time network stream, and pass that into Skype and pass video out of Skype back that way to the switcher. And OBS supports that. Unfortunately, Skype on Linux does not support that. So right now what you have to do is you have to have a Windows machine somewhere in the pipeline. But OBS could be actually doing the switching on Linux, but you would need the Skype part to be on Windows. So I'm thinking that may be what I'm going to do for my guest call-ins and stuff in the future, because it works. Unfortunately, I have to have a Windows machine laying around. But the good news is, because of NDI, I really only needed to have a network drop and have, some way to control it to bring the Skype call up. And then I can switch it and have everything else on Linux. So it's like 99% there. Who knows? Maybe one of these days, some developer, who knows, maybe even me might make it to where Linux has something similar to that available. But not everybody needs something like that. I mean, at this point, OBS is pretty good for a lot of users, but I'd like to see options. I would like to see something kind of like vMix, for example, on Linux, which is definitely geared towards a professional live production and gives you more of a software production switcher. Again, one of the things that bothers me about OBS is they're going for simplicity, and I get it. That's a good goal, but the problem with going for simplicity is you're taking out features you were going to need as a video professional. And here's the way I see it. How about we have a checkbox? I've seen a lot of video editors that want to be able to kind of serve both markets. How about this? Give us a checkbox where the default advanced settings are off, and then it's just simple. And, you can't do everything, but for somebody that just wants to do a really simple show, they can get the buy with it, right? And they don't need to understand as much. But then for somebody like me that, knows about video switching to the point that I want those advanced features, I go into the settings and hit a checkbox and reboot the software, and voila, I've got all the fancy settings that the normal users would not understand, right? I feel like that's a perfect way to slice it down in the middle, right? Give us the option to choose the experience. There was a video editor, I think it's OpenShot, actually, if I remember right, on Linux, that does that. It actually has a simple mode and an advanced mode is what it's called. And so why don't we have that in OBS, simple and advanced? I mean, we kind of do have that with studio mode and non-studio mode already. So just tack those fancy features onto studio mode. And then for the non-studio mode people, they won't have to worry about it. I feel like that's the perfect solution. You pretty much already got the toggle anyway.
That sounds like a very good idea, even for someone who has no clue what it is. But it does sound like a good idea. From what I'm hearing you describe, it is a good idea.
Well, I'm glad you agree with me, Billy. So, but no, OBS is really great. Have you ever used OBS before?
No,
you have not. Well, OBS is really great. So let me ask you: have you ever done a live video before of any kind?
Never.
Okay, well, that would explain why you don't know what any of this stuff is. You've never actually had a reason to look it up or to use it. So,
as I've probably told you before, I live under a rock.
Yeah, I guess you do. So here's the thing, Billy. What OBS Studio is, and for anyone else in the audience that don't know what it is, it's basically live video production software. So basically you can take a bunch of cameras, put them into a computer running OBS, and OBS runs under a Mac machine, a Windows machine, or a Linux machine. So it's very much cross-platform in that way. And basically what you do is you create these scenes and you can put different things on them. You can have logos, scrolling text, pretty much. If you can see them do it on the news, you can do it. You could do like the weather effect, have like the chroma key where you've got a green background and you like point at it and you could be like, here's the weather forecast for today. That's what
they do when they do the news and stuff.
Yeah. So, you can do all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, OBS is very powerful software. And if you have a powerful enough machine to be able to run a lot of cameras into it, so you could do a lot of really cool things. It's got the ability to send video in real time over the network and receive it. You have to add a plugin for that, the NDI plugin. But there's a lot of things you can do with it. So basically, OBS is a powerhouse for live video production. You can record a show and switch cameras really easy. For example, when I have my OBS set up, what I do is I've got keys on my keyboard set. So like, for example, one's camera 1, camera 2 is my desktop, camera 3, I think that's a remote video if I have somebody in, like calling in remote, or if somebody else in the studio might be a second camera angle or something. But like the idea is you press those keys and then I can, be able to switch, right? So like with a hardware switcher, you like usually have a T-bar, so you can like fade stuff up and down, and you have like a bunch of buttons for your sources. You can press them and switch them onto air. That's why it's called a switcher. You can switch sources, right?
Yep.
So OBS is pretty much doing that all in software, and then you can use a keyboard, right? I'm showing my keyboard like that. You can see it in the audio, but I can press my number keypad on the side here when I press 1 and 2 and so forth. It switches the sources and the preview is what I've got it set up to do. And then when I press the minus symbol above all that, it will transition using my currently set transition. And I think I have another key set to change from cut to fade and back and forth, because that's my 2 transitions I use. That way I can literally switch a whole show pretty much just by using the keyboard. Now, the lower thirds where it's got like the person's image, if I have to edit those with the keyboard, obviously, and that's more than that. But for the most part, I can get by with just the keyboard, not needing a mouse, and it's really great. So OBS is not bad. It's very good. And I'm sure there's professional productions being done with OBS. I mean, I would argue some of the stuff I do is semi-professional. I don't know about the word professional, but we're getting there. I actually wanted to do this show as video originally, but it hasn't worked out yet. But in the future, we'll probably be doing video. So maybe one of these days we'll do an episode where we actually show OBS while talking about OBS, and we'll be sitting there recording the whole show. But it's pretty cool stuff. So we're going to have to see, everybody, what ends up happening. But let's see. All right, yeah, we're about 20 minutes into the show, so we should probably start heading towards the main topic for this week. But yeah, I got off on a tangent there, everybody, talking about OBS Studio. But I basically, just to sum up my kind of point here, and then I'll let Billy give his points, and we'll get into our main topic for today. Do you think that Linux is going to be better for video production, first of all, in the future? Do you think we're going to go forward any on that?
I can see the values of having the OBS and stuff like that to help switch it over, be all like that, but I can see a future for it.
Yeah, so you do see that Linux is probably going to be better for video production in the future.
Yeah.
All right, okay. So I have to agree with you on that. We're definitely moving forward. The overall thesis for me is Linux. We've made a lot of strides in different areas. Video production, it just happens to be one of the places I do stuff, hence the reason I care. But Linux has made a lot of strides in a lot of areas, and I think that Linux really is, obviously I use it all the time, so I'm not exactly an unbiased source, obviously, but I think Linux is ready for prime time. And I think that over the next few years, we're going to see Linux market share continue to go up like it has, as more and more people slowly realize in video production or whatever it may be, hey, Linux can do that. And it's stable, it's open source, it's free, I can customize it to my exact needs, I think that we are going to slowly see an increase in Linux market share. I'm not saying it's going to take over Windows anytime soon, but I do think it's going to slowly go up. What about your predictions for next year?
Same as you. I see that there's going to be more. I don't know what I'm saying. As I said, I'm the noob here. You're supposed to be teaching me.
Well, I am teaching you. So, yeah, folks,
I'm slow.
Billy will, definitely catch on people. I think at a certain point, Billy
I haven't had the chance to explore all there is for.
Exactly. I mean, look, folks, I think, sometimes maybe I'm a little hard on Billy. I'm joking around and everything. But the thing is, Billy, he is a new user, and we have to all remember that. And I think
even I get the jokes.
Yeah. And the thing is, something to keep in mind, we're installing Linux on his machine today, so he's about to enter the world for the first time, and I think next year when we do our end of year episode next year like this, where we do the review and everything,
I'll probably be more knowledgeable.
Yeah, you'll be good to go. Also, just a programming note, we will not be doing an episode next week, but there will be a YouTube video published on Christmas Day next week, which is going to be the next recording day. So those that don't celebrate Christmas, if you don't know what day that is, next Wednesday.
And before we forget, we wish everyone a happy holidays and Merry Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas.
And whatever holiday you celebrate.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what Happy Holidays covers.
I know, but still, we have to be more specific. Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa.
There's a lot of holidays in December, but okay. Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah. What other holidays is there in Christmas?
That's the major three. Is the Christmas, Hanukkah,
yeah.
Kwanzaa.
We'll go with those then. And happy holidays of any other kind to you.
And Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year. All right. So we've said our holiday wishes to everybody now. So hopefully everybody has a wonderful holiday season. But anyway, so let's get into today's topic. So Billy, today we're going to talk about Linux, as you probably guessed.
Yep.
So Billy, today the whole thing we're going to do after we end up recording the show here, we're going to actually install Linux on your machine. That's the video that goes out next week. Or no, that's the video that goes out later today, or I don't know. That video is going out before next week, but I'm not sure exactly when. But check that out on the Open Source Tonight channel when it comes out. Be sure you're subscribed. But the thing is, we're going to be installing Linux on there, showing your first impressions, everything, and bringing you into the world. So, are you nervous? What's your thoughts on this whole process right now?
The only thing I'm worried about is that somehow I'm crashing my computer, but I know that won't happen. But knowing my luck,
I mean, I won't promise nothing happens. There's actually a video going up on the Open Source Tonight channel soon, where I actually tried to install Manjaro Linux for a friend. It's not Billy, it's somebody else, and literally, let's just put it this way. I have a lot of takes of it not working. And, I basically just got to a point. I'm like, I'm installing Linux, been on this machine for him, and I'm going to be like, here, this is the video. It's going to be just me outtakes. It's like going to be like 20 minutes or whatever of me trying to install it, being like, this doesn't work. Yeah. This doesn't work.
But I'm one of those people that have that kind of luck with machines that if you
have bad luck.
If I install something new, it's just going to break my computer.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I have bad luck with everything too. And the first time I installed Linux many, many years ago, I'll grant you, I had no issues. So knock on wood, you might be all right.
Although I do have one question about it.
Go ahead.
When I switch over, will it erase anything on my computer that I have not backed up?
Yes.
Okay, so it'll just make it like it's a brand new.
Yeah. So when we install Linux on your machine,
it'll erase everything on it.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be like a fresh install. The only thing you're going to have on it is what a default Linux Mint install would have on it until you drag your files over.
Okay. Or until I install anything afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, good, because I got all my things backed up and ready to go.
All right, sounds good. One thing I would recommend to you when you get more advanced into Linux, and this is a good thing to point out for people there listening to at home or at work or in the commute or wherever you're listening at. It's a podcast, you'll be listening anywhere, right? Is for Linux installs, the more advanced you get at it, there's a lot of things you can do to automate it. You can build like a script, for example, and a script's basically a little program with a bunch of commands that just really quickly can go and run and do a bunch of stuff for you, and you just run it and walk away. Yeah. So for example, I have a little script I've been working on. It's not done yet. I've just been kind of, working away at it when I have time, but it's a little script that will install a lot of the programs I want on my Linux machine out of the box, right? So basically I'm going to just have this, I'll copy it over to a machine, run it real fast, and it will run out and install my programs I'm going to want on day one.
I'll probably have to have you email me a list of like different commands and stuff to use.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things we're going to go over in that video, we're going to actually go over some of the things like about installing software and stuff. It's going to be kind of this is how to use Linux Mint kind of video in addition to just showing you there. But the thing is, I'll go over some of the stuff for the podcast. We'll kind of tease part of it. So some of the things to note when you're installing Linux, it depends on the Linux distro, but every Linux distribution has what's called a package manager, and that's how you install software. So you know how in Windows you download an executable file, an exe, an MSI file, etc., and you install it, right? Yeah. We don't do that on Linux. Well, there is there is something called package files, like .deb files for like Ubuntu and Linux Mint, and you can download those. And there is some software that you can do that way, like Chrome, for example, you would download that way. But the vast majority of software in Linux is actually installed via your package manager, and you won't be like downloading it from the web. So, for example, if you wanted to install Audacity, you would just go open a terminal, use your package manager to install Audacity by doing sudo apt install and then the package name, which in this case is all lowercase Audacity. And so if you type that in, put it in your root password, your administrator password, it's going to ask you for that. For your user, you hit it, you hit enter. It's going to ask you if you want to install it. You hit Y for yes and enter again, and voila, you walk away, and Audacity is going to be downloaded and installed. You come back, you can open it. So that's one of the beauties of Linux. It downloads it, finds it, and installs it all in one command.
So most programs can be downloaded that way?
Yeah, most programs. Now, again, the keyword is most. There is exceptions like Google Chrome where you have to go and fetch them from the actual web.
Yeah.
But again, the vast majority of programs you don't have to do it that way. And again, even with stuff you have to fetch from the web like Google Chrome, my script that I made actually can automatically install Google Chrome. It just simulates downloading the deb file, well, not simulates, it actually downloads it and then installs it. So you can do that automatically as well.
It just does it for you instead of you have to find it.
Yeah.
It automatically finds it for you to download.
Yeah, but I had to write the script to do that. So it was more work than having to download it once. But if you're doing like 5 or 10 computers or something, I have a lot of machines and want to be able to reinstall quickly, then for me, I think it makes sense. But again, for you starting out, you don't need to write a script for this now. Right now, learn how to use the package manager. That's what I'd advise you. That way when you see a program you want online or something, you can go and load it up. Now, the thing about package names is sometimes they're a little wonky. Sometimes they're not exactly what you think they're going to be. Like Audacity's common sense. The program's named Audacity. The package name's Audacity. That's the way I think packages should be named because it makes sense. But there is some packages where they add stuff at the end where if you didn't know about the program, you wouldn't know to add it. Like, for example, there's a video editor called the OpenShot Video Editor. It's all right for simple video editing. It's not actually that bad. It's kind of like Olive, but more for like a beginner. And it actually doesn't really drop frames and stuff as bad as Kden Live has done for me in the past either. So, it's not bad. But like, let's say you wanted to install that. You would think, sudo apt install OpenShot. Wrong. It's actually sudo apt install OpenShot -qt because it uses the Qt GUI engine, and I guess they wanted to tack that on there. There used to be a GTK version, which was another GUI toolkit. That's what draws the windows, and so I get it that they wanted to distinguish between the two in case that there was some overlap. But like really, they should have just it should have just done a hard cutoff and not had to do that because now it's going to be kind of confusing. But I get it. Well, I get why they probably did it. But I'm just saying you have to watch out for little package things like that where it's like, I didn't realize I had to do that at the end, so it won't find it. So sometimes you have to go and search on the internet for what the package name is,
Yeah.
So, but most of the time, putting in the name of the program all lowercase usually works. Not always, but most of the time. I think with Olive, it's Olive-video-editor, or maybe it is just Olive. I don't know. OBS is OBS-Studio, which makes sense. That's what it's called, right? Yeah. So, a lot of these make sense, but some of them don't. Firefox, for example, is very easy to install. You just do sudo apt install Firefox, which most Linux distros these days ship Firefox pre-installed anyway. So, depending on what you're using, you may not have to install it, but if you have to, that's how you would do it on a Linux Mint system, for example.
Well, let's say if I wanted like an emulator, as I mentioned earlier, off recording, would I do it that way, or would I have to actually?
So most emulators that I've used, you can actually apt install them. Like for example, there's DOSBox if you want to play DOS games. So you would do sudo apt install DOSBox, all one word. I'm pretty sure that's the package name for DOSBox, if I remember right. So that you would just do that. And then when you do that, you can open up DOSBox. It's basically a fake DOS environment. You can run DOS games, programs. It's actually really cool. So if you want to run some DOS games on Linux, that's the way to do it. And so I like some of the older DOS games. Some of them are pretty fun. I don't play DOS games much, but it's good. They're pretty cool stuff, some of them. So that's one way. There's Vice, the C64 the Commodore 128 and so forth emulator, right? So if you wanted to, for example, play Commodore games, that's how you would do that, right?
Yeah.
You would use that emulator. I think you can do sudo apt install Vice or something like that. I forget the one for that, but
You'll have to help me later to find one for like the Game Boy.
yeah, I'm pretty sure there's one for the Game Boy. There's one for Nintendo, if I remember right. I'd say there's one for Game Boy. But the thing is, so, basically get used to the package manager. Now, the one thing I want to point out to you, too, is you can start in the GUI. I mean, well, you can stay in the GUI if you want. So remember I said the package manager, you go and open a terminal and type that in. That's the way I most of the time install packages. However, Linux Mint has a really nice GUI tool that you can go in and search for packages. If you don't know the package name, you can go in there and install everything by just pressing buttons. So for somebody that doesn't want to get in the command line for whatever reason,
probably be
the terminal,
first.
or even if you want to get in the terminal and you just can't find the package, for example, and you don't want to open up the web browser, well, you can search for it in the package manager GUI and see if you can find it that way. So I think for you, I would say start out with the GUI, right? Start out with the GUI manager, get familiar with how things work and, stuff like that. The other thing that's really good about the GUI manager is it lets you browse it like a store. So you can like search around for stuff and be like, oh, I don't know what I want, but I want something that edits video.
Yeah.
Right, or I want something that edits photos, and then you can look at all the programs and be like, I like this one, hit install, right?
And you just you search like whatever you want.
Yeah, you search it up, and once you've searched it up, you can install that, just by pressing the install button.
Yeah.
And it's going to prompt you for your password, just like the command line, version, the apt installer, and voila, there you go, and then it will install. So,
well, I'm already excited to switch over.
That's great. So yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything. We only got a few minutes left here of the show. So, Billy, any final thoughts or questions or concerns or anything you want to say about moving to Linux
I've
Mint?
already asked most of the things because the only thing I'm worried about is be able to read my stories, stuff like that.
Yeah, read comics, and we already said
comics.
there's comic emulators. We found that in a previous episode. Go check it out if you haven't listened to that one yet. But
for all you comic fans,
yeah. But and I did not know that was the thing until Billy, was like, "Hey, this is the thing," and I'm like, "Oh, really? That's pretty cool." So,
the only other question I have is, what was it? There's a question I had is, like, what other it was about Minecraft, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, Minecraft will work with Linux. I actually have it on most of my machines because I don't play Minecraft a lot, but I do enjoy it, and so I definitely want to be able to play that. Minecraft will work on Linux. You do have to have the PC version, but I think that's implied. But as long as you've got a login for the PC version, you can just load it up just like you would on a Windows machine or a Mac and type in the information, hit login, download everything, and off you go.
If you don't have the Windows version, will you be able to just download it from the Linux?
You can download it. So if you haven't got it licensed, that's what you're asking, right? Yeah. You can download. I think you can download it without being licensed, but you can't really do anything until you're licensed. I don't think there might be a demo mode. There used to be a demo mode. Would you be able to buy the
license when you're in Linux?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, if you want it, it's $20. The last time I checked, to be fair, that was a few years ago. It might have
like
went
26
up.
now.
Okay, yeah. See, it's been a few years. But what you do is you go buy the license on the Minecraft website, and then once you do that, so you basically license your username. So you license it to your username. You just download it then from the website. For example, in Linux Mint, you would download the .deb file. So that's one of those examples I would tell you about a .deb. So download that. Once you download that, it's like an executable. You can double click on it in your file manager, right? It will launch and you can install it. You have to enter your password and everything, So basically it's like installing something from the store pretty much. But,
I probably
it's
have
not
to have
from
your
the
help
store.
with stuff like that.
All right.
To help figure it out until I learn it myself.
All right. Well, we can do that as part of the video. We can install, we can show installing Minecraft or something so you can see how to install a deb package. But the thing is, once you do that, you launch Minecraft up, just like on Windows, there's going to be an icon you can find in your, start menu. It's not called the start menu. I forget what it's called in Linux Mint, but, in Cinnamon, that little bar at the bottom of the panel that you can click on the little Linux Mint logo. It pulls up the little menu, and then you can search for Minecraft and you'll find it. Click on the little icon, or if you put it in your favorites, it will be there, whatever. And that's it, and you can click on it and open it up. You log in with your account and you're ready to play. So pretty self-explanatory. I don't think that you will have too much trouble with. The only thing I could see maybe having a little trouble with is the .deb file, getting it and everything.
Yeah.
Because they kind of make it a little hard to find, because it's a supported platform, but it's kind of like it's kind of like an afterthought kind of.
Yeah.
So that's kind of part of it.
Yeah.
But
the only reason I want it on my system is
so you can play Minecraft, obviously, right?
Besides that, is now that the PlayStation is now cross-compatible.
Yep.
You have to have the a Minecraft account and stuff like that. The Microsoft account for it.
Yeah.
To be able to buy anything for it.
I see. So
plus, I've always also wanted to try PC as well.
I got you.
Game.
I mean, I've only played Minecraft on PC pretty much. I when I was in school years ago, when I was in high school, one of my friends, they let me play Minecraft on their phone, I think for like a couple minutes, just to see what it